Dave Birkett here, Facebook Live and Freep.com, wrapping up day 3 of the NFL draft and really the 2020 NFL draft as a whole. The Lions made 5 picks today, starting with an offensive lineman, a second straight offensive lineman, a pick that I actually liked. I graded all of the Lions draft picks on Freep.com. My grades are up there. I gave them an A- for the class, went through the class individually as well, each pick. Some I liked, some I didn't. Logan Stenberg, he was the first pick of the draft for the Lions, or the first pick of today for the Lions. Jashawn Cornell, the last pick, defensive lineman from Ohio State. We'll get into all your questions on every single one of those players. If you have them, feel free to hit them up here in the Facebook Live chat. But first, I just wanted to talk about, I just wrote about 35 inches for you newspaper people out there on Bob Quinn's thoughts sort of at the end of the draft. He talked about every pick, but the thing that really stood out to me was just talking about how this draft process has made him sort of maybe reevaluate how the Lions go about the their pre-draft process in years going forward, and being home with his family, with his kids, having them a part of the whole draft process has made him yearn for that a little bit more. And he instructed his staff, in their end of the draft Zoom today, to come up with ideas or suggestions on things that they can incorporate into the spring going forward. He suggested that maybe they don't have maybe they have some virtual meetings every week. Maybe they're not on the road quite as much. I mean, maybe there are things. And he said, look, I can't hold you to it, or you can't hold me to it, but it's something that he wants to maybe be able to strike a better work-life balance for his scouts and his coaches and everyone, really February through April, when they spend so much time on the road at pro days and in some of these meetings that maybe they can do virtually from now on. So, look, I know this is past month and a half really has been tough for everyone. It's certainly been different in the NFL. It's been different all over, for that matter. I'm sure some of you out there are feeling the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic on a personal level. But I've always kind of scratched my head and wondered that, right? And look, maybe it's a little different in season. But what is a coach who spends 21 hours there on all day there on a Friday night, a Thursday night, into the wee hours of the morning? Like, what are they getting done at 2 a.m. then when the game plan is in for the week? There are some coaches, and I'm not suggesting this about anyone in particular, but there are some coaches who are just there to be there, right? And they're not working. And one thing Bob said was, we have to work smarter, not longer. And, so I think maybe if there's a good thing to come out of this whole pandemic, maybe that goes for everyone, across this country, that you sort of, reevaluate some of the things that are meaningful. And it seems like, at least on the NFL level, Bob and some of those, some of the other people in the NFL have done that. So that'll be an interesting thing to follow. Hopefully we get back to normal too long, but maybe there's a little bit new sense of normal, I guess. All right, so let me go through some of these questions here. I hope you guys are all doing well. Sorry, it looked like for a quick sec. Hopefully we're back. I apologize if this is going in and out a little bit. I was having some problems earlier during Bob's Zoom. Anyways, so let me get to these as much as possible. Rob, appreciate that. I think you're talking probably about the grade article. Listen, I don't agree with every pick. I gave him an A-, and if you probably averaged out the grades of all the picks, it wouldn't equal an A-, but I weighted those grades heavily towards the players up top. I like the Jeff Okudah pick. I think there was, look, I would have liked to see him make a trade. They would have liked to have made a trade. There wasn't a trade there. And I don't think you can fault Bob in the Lions for that. So I like what they did. I gave him an A. I think Okudah was the right pick at number 3. I think he was the best player on the board, so can't go wrong with that. DeAndre Swift, we talked about this yesterday, just the value of a running back at 35. And look, when you see Matt Breida get a 5th-round pick, right? He goes for a 5th-round pick that maybe you think that maybe that running back's a little too high, Swift at 35, and they could have addressed other needs. I like it still. I think Swift he was a great, he was the best player there. And that's what this team wants to be. One thing Bob said, let me see if I got this quote handy. One thing that he said in the wrap-up, video conference that he did, he was talking about the emphasis they put on the running game here in the draft, right? They drafted 2 guards, they drafted 2 running backs. They certainly put a lot of emphasis on that. I'm going to read you this quote because I don't think this story is up there yet on our website yet. But he said, I think Coach Bevel, if you guys studied his history before he came here, he always had successful running games wherever he was. That really made his quarterbacks better. That's kind of our philosophy. We're not going to sit back there with our 4 receivers and in spread. We're not going to do that. That's a small part of our offense. He said they want to be, we want to be adaptive like we are on defense. He said, Patricia, we're a game plan defense, and we can morph into what we think works that week. And really the same goes for Bevel's offense. And they want to run the ball, and DeAndre Swift should help them do that. So I like the value there. I thought that was an A. I got mixed feedback on Julian Okwara and Jonah Jackson, the next 2 picks, but I thought there was some value there. Same thing with Stenberg in round 4. I think you guys saw the story that I posted about him being the biggest prick in the draft, and that, meaning that in a good way, from a scout that I know. So, look, they didn't hit the defensive tackle spot, and I didn't like that. I wasn't a fan of the receiver they took in round 5, Quinn Cephas, not necessarily for the player he is, but just for other reasons. So that wasn't a pick that I like much. I guess I didn't quite understand the Huntley pick, but I just thought the value they got with those first 2 guys and what they did really in round 3 as well, even though I could have seen them taking a defensive tackle over Okwara. I thought it was worth an A- grade. I was going back and forth between A-, B+, but I want A- at the end of the day. So call me a sucker, whatever, but that's how I went. That's how I saw it. All right, Jensen, not a draft-related question, but when does the NFL schedule get released? That's supposed to be in 2 weeks. I think the date was May 8th or May 9th at the latest. So, we'll see. That should be coming up shortly. You guys have probably seen the reports that the NFL is going to structure the schedule as such so they could play a 12 or 14 game schedule if need be if the season does not start on time. That to me would mean that your non-conference games are going to be in the first month of the season. Look, I don't expect the NFL to play London games, though the Lions would be going to London to play Jacksonville. That's I don't know if that's been quite confirmed yet, and maybe I shouldn't say it like it's been confirmed, but that's 99% the expectation that that's going to happen. But I just don't expect that to happen now with what's going on in the world. So draft or the schedule should come out in early May. We should get an idea of who the Lions play and when. Then expect to see a lot of conference games, division games loaded towards the back half of the schedule. Jeremy, all right, do I think the Cephas pick was maybe the cause of win now edict? No, I think they needed a wide receiver. And, he was a productive player in college. I just didn't like it for 2 reasons. One, he ran a 4.73 40 at the combine. That was the slowest time of any receiver at the combine. And now, Bob said he had a better performance at his pro day that was more indicative of who he was as a player. Maybe so, but you know what? I just think if you talk to people around the league, the one thing they will tell you about this Lions team is that it just lacked a lot of speed, right? You know how they build with these big linebackers, and I think that's the case on offense somewhat too, that they didn't always have as much speed. And Cephas says he doesn't help in that regard. And then the other thing for me was just the off-field questions. And look, he was acquitted of the charges. He was accused of sexual assault in 2018, missed that season, acquitted of those charges in 2019. But I just didn't think, given what this organization went through a couple years ago, that was a pick they should have entertained in a deep wide receiver draft when there are many options out there. So just stickler for that. Never going to want the team to touch anybody with that in their background, no matter what the results of the the trial were. That's just my own personal preference, so that's why I gave that grade. New Mexico State there. He's talking about Jason Huntley, the running back. This is Dante. Hey, Dante, look, I got to be real honest. I put this in my grades. Like, I don't know anything about him as a player, right? I watched a quick highlight clip after he was drafted, but I didn't have enough background to comment on him as a player. My only question with that pick was, why you double up on the running back position. The Lions took Ty Johnson in the 6th round last year. They returned Kerryon Johnson. Bob Quinn talked today about, Bo Scarborough still being part of that rotation. So there's only so many, snaps, I guess, to go around. And I think Swift's going to get a lot of them, and Kerryon's going to get a lot of them. And so I don't know exactly how he fits into the mix. Maybe as a return man, but it's tough to, Jamal Agnew is a pretty good return man too. And it's tough just to keep a spot for somebody who that's really all he does. Bob did say And maybe this goes to what Dante was saying, but Bob did say that he plays bigger than his size. He's not just a one-trick pony with the size. He's willing to take on contact. So Dante, I'm anxious to see Hundley in action. I'm anxious to watch him a little bit more when I get the opportunity. Talk to more people about him. David talks about the Hunter Bryant undrafted free agency tight end. Look, they needed a tight end. I put that on my day 3 watches. Some players. The thing with Hunter Bryant was he had some medical concerns, and I think that's why he fell out of the draft. I think both knees, if I'm not mistaken, whatever it was, he had some medical concerns. But yeah, look, the Lions felt comfortable, obviously, with the medicals, or at least willing to spend the money on him as an undrafted free agent. I don't know what that number is yet, but I think it's probably a big number. Actually, was that reported? Maybe it was. Maybe my friend Aaron Wilson reported that. Let me see. Did he? No, I didn't. No, maybe it was somebody else. Aaron said Jeremiah Dinson got $80,000 guaranteed, including a $30,000 bonus. Look, the Lions, because they're only signing, Bob said 7 to 10 undrafted free agents. Maybe they can pump those prices up a little bit more. I imagine Hunter gets a good deal, but also because of the opportunity here, he'll compete with Isaac Nauta for the number 3 spot. And there's probably an opportunity before long to be the number 2 to T.J. Hockenson. Joshua asked, can the Lions beat the Packers? That's a big question. Look, I don't. Maybe I'm on an island here, all right? But I don't think the NFC North is all that tough, all right? That's just me, right? There's no elite team. There's no Kansas City Chiefs, right? There's no team that's gonna run through the whole schedule or be a threat to be a Super Bowl team, in my opinion. I think the Packers had a good year last year, but there might have been a little fool's gold element to that. They won a whole lot of close games, and shoot, they didn't even lead the Lions a second in regulation. I think they're a good team. I don't know exactly what their draft is right now, so I can't speak much to that. These days, sort of, they go so fast that I don't know who all they added outside of Jordan Love and outside of a running back early. And I don't know that either of those selections is going to help them a ton. I mean, I think their philosophy is a little bit like the Lions. You have a good running game, the play action that only helps the quarterback. So I understand that, but you're not going to get much out of Jordan Love. So can the Lions beat him? Sure. To me, Minnesota is the team to beat in the NFC North. I think the Lions helped themselves in this draft. With some of the playmakers they added. I still wouldn't put them on that level. But I think there's, it's a very slim margin for error for the NFC North teams. The Bears, they were a 500 team last year. They didn't really help themselves in the draft. They didn't even have a first-round pick. The Packers, good team. I like some of the moves they did this offseason. You take a flyer on Rick Wagner. Ezra Cleveland, that's another guy they drafted. I think he's got a shot. I think he went there. Maybe that was Minnesota, so I apologize if it's not. Maybe it is Minnesota. But, look, Rick Wagner's taken over at right tackle. I think the Lions, they're a better team. They weren't a 3-win team to begin with. They're a better team. Probably won't be picking them for the playoffs, but, I like the moves they made. I think they're going to be more competitive in the NFC North. Jared, thanks for the coverage. Hey, I appreciate it. Talks about them needing a difference-making defensive tackle. Didn't get one. No, I'm with you. They didn't get one, and that's the biggest failing of the draft to me. Is I think that was a. Oops, sorry about that. Let's see what we got here. Flip this sucker back around. I don't know how I did that. There we go. User error happens sometimes when you're going live. I was trying to read all of Jared's comments there, and I couldn't. But anyways. Yeah, no, they didn't get a defensive tackle. That's the one biggest fail to me is what, to me that was a big need coming in. And they added 2 defensive linemen late, and I think both those guys can be, role player types and maybe even, I don't know if they're going to have a role this year. Pennicini would probably have the best bet, but, he's more of a backup to, I guess, Danny Shelton, Cornell, your 7th-round pick. I like that pick for the upside, but I don't know that either one of those guys is gonna have a big impact. And I don't see a lot of playmaking out of that defensive tackle position. Shelton, Nick Williams, Deshaun Hand coming off a couple injuries. We'll see. Maybe they surprise me. But I still think that's the biggest need to answer your question, Jared. Yes, I do. I think defensive tackle is the biggest need right now. Chris, do I think Cephas will be a starter this season? No, they have, Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, that's your starting 3 receivers. The Cephas pick, they need a number 4, and they need somebody to be that they can see being in the playing group in 2021, because none of those guys is under contract for 2021. And Galladay is going to get an extension. Who knows? Maybe they bring Marv back. But they need some long-term help at the receiver position, and Cephas could potentially be that guy. Marvin Hall, don't forget about him as well. He's got some speed. Obviously, we saw that last year. Chris asks, how many of these picks do I think will start? No doubt Jeff Okudah will start. Bob Quinn said he expects him to be a day 1 starter. That should absolutely be the expectation at the number 3 pick. Look, you don't take a running back. Sorry, connection popped out there for a second again. You don't take a running back at 35 to not have him play. So I think DeAndre Swift is probably your starter. Maybe Kerryon gets the first carry of the season, but and those guys will split the workload in a lot of ways. But to answer your question, I think DeAndre Swift is a starter. One of those offensive guards is probably your starting right guard. I would give the edge to Jonah Jackson. Bob said they fell in love with him at the Senior Bowl. They took him first. That's probably the case. He's played all 3 positions. If I'm not mistaken, Stenberg has just played left tackle, where he started 3 seasons at Kentucky. Stenberg, not a great athlete. Again, biggest prick in the draft in a good way. So I like that. I like that pick. And there are, my understanding at least, was there are some long-term concerns about Joe Dahl's health. So I don't have a problem with them doubling up at the guard spot. But to answer your question, I think those 3, they get 3 starters out of there. I don't see Julian Okwara as a starter. I do see him as a situational pass rusher. So probably 3 starters pretty early on in the season. We'll see if Jackson can be a starter week 1. Steve, yeah, everybody being optimistic with the draft that makes you nervous. Hey, I get that. Look, I wrote this. I think this story did post earlier. I didn't tweet it out, so maybe you guys didn't see it. But look, these draft grades, you guys know, they mean nothing, right? I mean, when I took a quick glimpse, the Cowboys in 16 when they got Zeke and Dak Prescott and Jalen Smith, that's one of the best draft hauls in the last 10 years. That and the New Orleans Saints, all right, from 2017, I think it was. The 2 best draft hauls in the last 10 years. And guess what? The Cowboys, they were sort of ranked as like a middle-of-the-pack draft that year because Jalen Smith was a risk, and that was going to be because no one knew what Dak Prescott was going to be. And, look what look what that class has turned out to be for them, a really good class. So these draft rankings mean nothing. I think it's good to be optimistic. I think it's fine to have questions about some of the picks. Like I said, my overall ranking was based primarily on the first 2 picks. I liked the players they took with their next 3 picks. Though I would have liked to see a defensive tackle a little bit more in there. It's okay to be optimistic, but yeah. Do I think they should have taken a quarterback like Jake Fromm? No, I don't. I wrote this in my position preview early on in heading into the draft that if you don't take Tua or a first-round quarterback, it didn't make any sense to me to take a late-round one just because you got Stafford. You're not drafting somebody to replace him if you're not taking him in the first round. Then you sign Chase Daniel to a 3-year deal. He's the backup. So those are your 2 quarterbacks. It just didn't make sense to spend a pick on a quarterback. Now, maybe you bring in some competition for David Blau. I don't know if they'll keep three quarterbacks. Given the circumstances of the year, it might be a good thing to do to keep 3, but I didn't really see it. If you don't take a quarterback that's going to compete with Stafford, right? Like if you don't think you need to replace Stafford, then you don't need to get a young backup because you have Chase Daniel signed for 3 years. So to answer your question, don't have a problem with them not taking him or anyone. And I see he didn't either. So just to make that clear. Joshua asks, can we win the NFC North now? Like I said, man, I am not picking the Lions to make the playoffs. Right now on April 25th, that's to be reevaluated another time, but I would still say the Minnesota Vikings are the favorite in the North. I thought they were the better team last year than the Packers myself. Schroeder, it feels like this class is in a class full of wide receivers. I could start. The Lions waited too long. The thing is, right, if you think they waited too long, which one do you take and when over who? So I like their first 5 picks. I don't have a problem with when they waited to take one. I think Cephas was a fine player. That just, my thoughts on that pick are documented them earlier here. Wasn't a fan of it. But that doesn't mean that's going to be the wrong player, or he's not going to contribute for them, because he does have some skill. So, but yeah, it was a really deep receiver class this year, and I'm sure there are a lot of guys that could have filled that position. Take undrafted in the second running back. Yeah, I mentioned that a little bit earlier, that I don't know enough about Huntley as a player to give you a great scouting breakdown on him. Obviously fast. Bob Quinn said dynamic return man. Says he plays bigger than his size. I'll take him at his word for those things for now, until I talk to some more people on that. I didn't quite get the doubling up on the running back thing. I think that's a spot where, look, they ended up getting the tight end in undrafted free agency. They didn't really pass on too many defensive tackles. I think it was 2 before they took Pennicini with the next pick. I guess in order for me to hate it, I would have to have somebody that I felt really strongly about them missing on. I don't have that, but I just, like I said, I didn't, I don't understand the doubling up at that position given what they already have on their roster. But hey, you know what? Look, running backs and undrafted ones and small school ones and late round ones, they have impact. So, it's not a terrible thing. I think I gave that pick a B. I just didn't quite grasp it completely. Jensen, about the cap money the Lions have. Yes, Galladay's going to get an extension. That's going to happen. He wants it to happen. The Lions want it to happen. Unless the circumstances of the world dictate something else, I fully expect that to happen this offseason. He's going to get paid well. $16 million a year, something like that. So they will spend some of their money on an extension for him. I think they'd like to get Taylor Decker done as well. I'm a little unclear if that one's going to get done, but that's certainly something that could happen too. Chris asked about defensive linemen in free agency. Chris, outside of Jadeveon Clowney, I don't have any great names for you. My mind's a little locked into the draft right now, so I might have to think about that one for a second, come back to you, or hit me up on Twitter. And once I kind of get out of this draft mode, I'll have some thoughts. But I don't think the Lions are in the Clowney mix. He didn't fit in Houston, so he probably doesn't fit in Detroit. But they do have some cap money to spend, so who knows, right? Maybe they can. And Chris Jones, supposedly still on the market in Kansas City. Who knows? That'd be a great one. Sue resigned. He resigned in Tampa, if I'm not mistaken. There we go. Steve said that as well. Sorry, I'm just catching up on some of these, scrolling up. Any thoughts on why they passed on all the U of M players? About the linemen in particular, I guess I can tell you that they love Jackson. That's what it was. Excuse me, long day. They said they fell in love with him at the Senior Bowl. Bredesen is a guard. I think Runyon is a guard too, probably a guard only. Runyon said that he thought he was a guard, so they got their 2 guards. They didn't need any of the offensive linemen. I just never saw DPJ as a fit for the Lions, truthfully. I mean, very athletic guy, but I don't know. No one really told me that. I just never quite saw that as a fit. I thought Josh Uche was the best fit for them, and of course he went, I guess, a little bit before they picked in the 3rd round, right? So they just missed out on him. So wasn't surprised necessarily that they didn't end up with any other Michigan guys. Don't think there's anything to read into it. Just maybe not a lot of great fits there. Let's see. Loretto, I think you're talking again about your running back, right? Jason Huntley, is that right? Broken tackle rate, and that's why he's fast. Yeah, I don't know, 98%. I mean, he gets brought down, right? So I don't know. But no, I'm anxious to see him, right? The guard, yeah. Look, Eric, I'm with you, man. The bring the nasty, like, to me, the pick of Logan was, I kind of got. When I got a text from a scout, that said he was the biggest prick in the draft, that just made me like, wow, this is really the kind of guy that the Lions need. This is the exact kind of guard that they want on their team. And again, as I was texting back and forth with my guy, he said there's, just because you're tough, it doesn't mean that you're going to be the guy, right? Like sometimes you fall because the lack of athleticism, and that was the case here with Logan, but. If I'm playing quarterback, that's the kind of guy, or running back, that's the kind of guy that I want blocking for me. And I know Bob Quinn said that he really liked that as well. Kevin, you're right. Ty Johnson's speed wasn't so. This is what somebody had told me before, right? That he was more straight line fast than he was shifty, and I think that's the case. And so some of that doesn't always show up at the running back position, because how often are you running straight line? How often are you running straight lines at the running back position? And so that's why I think, sometimes you see these running backs that are 4.5, 4.6 guys even have really good careers, because it's not about the straight line speed as much as it is being shifty and having some of that short area burst. So, but I think Ty Johnson still could have a role, or I did at least until they took 2 running backs. I'm not sure now. Bob said those guys will compete for a job and they know what's at stake. But just the fact that you drafted another running back and spent a 5th round pick on him, it makes me think that Ty Johnson's days in Detroit might be numbered. Any idea if the Auburn guy is in the lead for punter? Santoso going to get called back? No, they like Fox, man. I've written this a couple times, so people don't want to believe me or whatever. And I know I threw Braden Mann in my players to watch just in case, day 3 picks to watch just in case. But they like Fox. All right, Jack Fox. All right, Jake. What is it? Fox. He came in for a workout for late in the season last year, right? Early December, I think it was. And sorry, I was just checking that. He came in for a workout in early December, rocked it. I mean, was punting out of his butt, just did a great job. They cut Matt Weil. They signed Fox to the practice squad. Really like what they saw in him. I think it's going to be an open competition between Jack Fox and the Aussie punter this year. They're not going to keep 3 on their roster, right? They're not going to bring 3 to camp, so they probably get rid of one of those guys. I think Fox was the guy that they liked most. They have room to keep 3 now, but they also have 3 long snappers on their roster. They're not going to keep 3 long snappers right now. So you probably like, they probably like, I should say, haven't talked to anyone about this, that undrafted rookie better than one of the 2 guys they have on the roster now. So they're going to have them compete. And what they did last year, you recall, was they had Matt Weil on practice squad for a couple weeks when Sam was dealing with his injury. When Jack Fox had that great workout, they cut Weil and brought Fox in. Then they re-signed both to futures deals. So I think Fox is the guy that it's probably his job to lose, but I think it's probably a pretty fair competition. Bruno, you're right. You know what? If they were able to swing a trade up top, you get that extra 2nd round pick, you get that defensive tackle, and that's the one thing that this draft class lacks. So I think you're right. If that happens, maybe it's an A. Outside of that, Chase Young falling, I think those are probably the only A's. I totally understand exactly what you're saying, right? Defensive tackle, whether it's Blaylock or not, that would have been the right move or a great addition for them if they could have got that. Somebody got to teach learn how to block Hunter first. That's probably right. But he's an offensive lineman or a receiving type, right? So he can bring a certain dimension to this team. It's certainly going to be T.J. Hockenson as your number 1 guy and Jesse James as your number 2, so he would have a very specific role. Sorry, I'm catching up late on these, Chris. I don't know if you're talking about the lack of a defensive tackle is a big fail, probably right. All right, middle linebacker here, bunch of guys. You know how they play, man. They're going to have a couple guys stacked up there. Tavai, Davis, those are probably your middle linebackers. I can see Jared playing a little bit more off the edge this year, blitzing him more since he was so effective doing that in 2018. So maybe Tavai takes over a little bit more of the middle, but I think both of those guys continue to be stack linebacker types, and they play Collins a little bit more on the edge. But look, maybe it's Julian Okwara that gets some edge time. We'll see how that all shakes out. So look, Davis Lions have a decision to make here on Davis and his contract, his 5th-year option coming up. I reported before, they had told some agents during free agency that they recognize Davis's limitations. So I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know that they're going to spend much. I don't know that they want to lock themselves in potentially to a big money 5th-year deal for Jared Davis. We'll see. They like him a lot as a person, as a leader, so that's an interesting decision they have to make. Free agents, Trent, like I said, I'm a little free agents are sort of out of my mind right now, so hit me up on Twitter about that one when I have a second to catch my catch back up to speed on who's still left in free agency right now. Yeah, Jonathan, look, on the offensive line thing, I think that's what it is, right? That both of these guards, you could see them both starting down the road. One is probably going to start at some point this year. You got a backup for Man, excuse me, losing it. You got to back up for Joe Dahl. It's been a long week, guys. I apologize. I'm yawning. But, down the road, if you got a 4th-round pick that's starting for you in 2 years at guard and gives you a couple good seasons out of there, that's a win of a pick, right? So who knows if that's what happens, but I think that's the way you have to look at it from the Lions standpoint. And again, at the defensive tackle thing, this is one thing that they have some bodies there, but they just don't have any difference makers there. And, after they passed on those guys in the first 2, maybe even early 3rd round, because I think Matabuke was there in the 3rd round, I would have, thought he was a good player. You're not going to get, a difference maker. And I don't even know that Matabuke, however you say his name, was a difference maker. I think he could be one in time. But so, they have bodies to get by a defensive tackle. Let's see. Swift was your third choice at running back, Jim. Sorry, I'm getting you late here, but are you saying like after Dobbins, after Clyde Edwards-Helaire, after Jonathan Taylor? I think I like that pick up top. You could have made a case for a couple different guys in the 2nd round, but I thought DeAndre Swift was the 1st-round back, and I thought what they wanted to do at the position, he made a lot of sense. And I thought the value, as I explained yesterday, I think there's value in taking a running back not too high in the draft, not top 10, but I think if you can get a good running back where the Lions got him, you get the best years out of him. You don't spend a lot. So stopping the run, Chris, you're right. I do think that's going to be a huge issue because of the defensive tackles. But look, Danny Shelton played well last year. So if that, if he, and Snacks didn't. So if Danny Shelton's better than Snacks, at the defensive tackle spot, maybe all of a sudden their run defense is improved. Can I comment on why Hill didn't get drafted? What Hill? I'm sorry. I don't know what Hill you're talking about. I apologize about that. Again, all these names are sort of running together right now. The guards, again, Michael, I think it's just about, the value there. They needed one to start. And yeah, there's a chance for them to, both have starting jobs down the way. So Mike asks, why no defensive end or defensive tackle in rounds 3 or 4? Yeah, I mean, again, those were some of the ones that I mentioned. A couple of the ones they missed out on. Jordan Elliott was in there. I think he went 3rd round, but the Lions passed on him with both their 3rd round picks. So apparently they didn't like him, that much. Though, again, Jonah Jackson's going to be a starter for them. So I get the guard pick in round 3. Always seemed like that was the right spot to take one. And he seemed like a fit since they had him at the Senior Bowl. But you're right. That's the one thing this draft class lacks. But we'll see where they play Julian Okwara too. I think he's probably fits better at that, stand-up outside linebacker spot. But Romeo's a right defensive end. Julian's, he's going to be a little bit bigger, so maybe he can play both. Chris Jones. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know that the Lions are giving up anything to get him right now. I mean, I think they're probably pretty set. I was just sort of throwing that name out there, like that's another one that's out there, more than saying that's going to happen. But yeah, no, it's it's an interesting thing to ponder at the very least. All right, how does it feel to come in 4th on the mock draft competition? Man, I'll tell you what, those are just darts. Let's be honest. I mean, you have a sense of it, but like even when you have a sense of it, like you don't, is I guess what I mean. I mean, I think I had the first 9 picks of the draft right, at least in the right spot. And the next couple draft or picks, I just had I had the wrong offensive lineman in the wrong spot. Like Jedrick Wills. I didn't think the Browns would take him because the Browns just signed Conklin, right? They didn't need a right tackle to me. So I thought maybe they'd take Becton, right? They didn't take Becton. Becton goes the next pick to the Jets. So I just had my lineman cross there. So I think some of that happens where you put in, you talk to a lot of people during this process, and some people are gonna know, some people aren't, and you just sort of take all the information that you get from people. No one's telling you who they're drafting, right? They tell you what rumors they hear. There's some things that you can file away that, okay, this coach likes this guy, or this team doesn't like this guy, and you just sort of always keep that in the back of your head. So, like I said, those things are darts. Next year I'll probably get 4 right, and I'll probably finish at the bottom of that. So, kind of cool, but doesn't mean a whole lot. Let's see. KJ Hill from Michigan. That's a good question. I don't know. Lavert Hill, right? Lavert Hill. Yeah, he was. Someone had asked me. Somebody texted me, just a friend of mine, Michigan friend, and he said that he hoped the Lions signed Lavert Hill. But the Lions obviously had. Well, there you go. He signed with Kansas City. So, man, I did that again, didn't I? Not sure why I keep doing that. Sorry, I can't keep hitting the wrong button. Yeah, so Bruno's talking about my look. Actually, I'll be real honest. I'm 4 for 5 on Bob Quinn. I didn't get 3 years in a row. I missed Frank Ragnow. I did hit Decker. I did hit Jared Davis in my last mock there. Missed Ragnow, hit Hawkinson, and then hit this one. So just again, you kind of put things together. No one in the Lions is telling you who they're taking and everything. It's just kind of one of those things. All right, let's wrap this up. William, you called me Josh Katzenstein. Man, I might have to call him. This buddy of mine, obviously, used to work at the news. He's down in New Orleans right now. And then let's see, Mike just chimes in here. How do you see our defense improving from last year's disgrace after the draft and free agency? I think they're a little bit, I think some of the moves they made early on this offseason were lateral moves, so not like gung-ho on what they did. But I think they're better because, I like the Okuda thing. I mean, I shouldn't say better. I think there's the potential to be better. When you have a blue chip player like Okuda, it's going to take him a minute, right? Rookie cornerbacks, you don't come in and dominate right away. So he's not going to be as good as Darius Slay. And I don't think Desmond Trufant's going to be as good as Darius Slay was last year. But Trufant's, he's closer to that caliber, I guess. And Okuda would be closer to that caliber than Rashaan Melvin. So I think overall, the Lions secondary, those two and Justin Coleman, that might be a little bit better once things get settled. Again, Okuda's not going to come in and dominate right away. So I think, there's some potential back there. But, to me, the defense it's sort of a wash. I don't think that it's significantly better. I do think maybe it's a hair better. I think, Jamie Collins, Deron Harmon, there's some value to having some of those old Pats in a season like this. It's really going to come down to that offense, right? Keeping Stafford healthy and whether they can hold up, because I could see them giving up a bunch of points again. New coordinator, new personnel. They're going to have 6 new starters on the defensive side of the ball. So there's a lot that they're going to have to get right on defense to have a bounce back year. Michael, I'm going to pass on the playoff question again. Like I said earlier, not picking them right now, to be reevaluated in the fall. I don't think the NFC North is this big insurmountable task, so I don't think it's out of the question. But I'm not. The Vikings are the favorite to me. I'd probably put the Packers second. After that, and the Lions and the Bears are, probably fighting it out for third right now. In my eyes, don't trust the Bears quarterback situation at all. Lions defense still has some work to do, as we were just talking about. So that's kind of how I'd stack it up now. But need to kind of look at those other teams' rosters a little bit too, and kind of figure out what they have. And what I like to do before I make my picks is, and that's why I always get a kick. I'll make my picks here when the schedule comes out, but it's super early. But I like to run some of that by, or get thoughts at least from pro personnel guys who see some of these teams play in the fall or in training camp. And so that's why I kind of, I tend to value those guys' opinions who see them and who do this for a living a little more than mine, and then try to, regurgitate some of that for you guys out there to at least sound somewhat informed. Landing spot for Jameis Winston, don't have any idea right now. Again, I don't know where these quarterbacks lined up. Did the Patriots take a quarterback? I know they signed one in undrafted free agency, but it just, again, these days are so long and you lose track of who did what that I don't have a great answer for you there. I would not have taken Eason or Fromm in rounds 4 or 5, Mike. I don't think the Lions needed that backup. Didn't hear great things about Eason other than he had a huge arm. So, to me, it was you ride with the quarterbacks that you have. If the Lions don't have a good year, should Patricia be gone? I think they're going to be. I mean, look, the ownership, they said it in December. If they don't have a good year, they're going to be out of jobs in all likelihood. I mean, it's just the reality of the NFL. And, Chris asked it too, are their jobs on the line? They are on the line. And look, it's a tough situation, right? Because, I think those guys, look, they have families, and this is a weird year in This is certainly not optimal situation to try to produce the best possible team that you can. I think they did a good job during this draft, so I give them credit for that. I think they've done some good things with the roster building process, even though I don't like all the moves. I didn't like getting rid of Darius Slay. I didn't like getting rid of Quandre Diggs. I thought those guys had some value. So I think there's been some missteps along the way, but bottom line is they have to win. That's just how it is in the NFL, and they know that, and ownership knows that, and they've made that pretty clear. And ownership did not paint itself in a corner and say you have to make the playoffs, but that was the sense that they gave everyone in that room when we sat there and talked to them. And so even in a weird year like this, when there are certainly legitimate reasons why maybe things don't fall into place. I don't know that's going to be. I don't know that there's enough goodwill that's been built up from the last 2 years to help save them if there's a mediocre season, even if it's explainable in a year like this. So yes, I think that their jobs are still on the line. So. All right, that's gonna do it for now, guys. I'm tired. I haven't eaten in a bunch of hours. It's 11 o'clock. Need to get some sleep. Go see the fam a little bit, and reintroduce myself to them because it's been a long few days. But listen, I appreciate you guys joining me here for a late night Facebook. I appreciate you reading everything on freep.com. I'm gonna be off next week. We got furloughs coming, so you won't see much of me next week. But I'll be back after that. To bring you all your Lions news as usual. But again, thanks everyone for joining me here. It's been a long week, and thanks for sticking with us. You guys are the best. And hit me up on Twitter, email. Always try to get back to you there, even though I know I'm swamped with emails right now and I haven't got to those in a while. But everyone have a good night, and thanks for joining me here on Facebook Live, freep.com.